Here's what leaders need to know. When you're thinking about the people who you're wanting to influence or you're looking to impact, you've got to understand that you've got to put them first. People are people. A lot of CEOs or executives look at a company and they're thinking about their financial strategies. They're thinking about their operational strategies, their sales and marketing strategies. But what they forget are their people strategy, right? Because we can't do all these other things unless people are behind driving them. So when we think about leaders and what we need to do as far as focusing on selflessness, it's about thinking about what our people need and how we give that to them. It's not necessarily just money or benefits or any of those kind of things. It's care, it's concern, it's empathy, and being able to let people know that you truly do care about them. And if you really want to get down to it, what it's all about is trust. And the way that we build trust and the reasons why we trust people is because we think that person or we know that person has our best interest at heart. And if that's what we want to build with people and that's what we want, that's where our focus has to be.
Start with your name, a little bit about some credibility, where you're from, how you got to this position today in this territory.
Well, my name is Jeremy York, and I am the lead consultant and president of Invigorate HR, a human resource consulting firm. And a friend of mine, Jody Curtis, invited me here today to be a part of this and to just share, perspectives on joy and joy in your life. How do you get joy? How do you live joy? How do you claim joy when joy seems so far away in those different respects? And so, life is a journey, and I do believe that we're always put in the places where we are supposed to be at the right time. So here I am.
Perfect. I feel you are very high vibe, lots of energy. Like, how does that show up in work? How does it affect the people that you're working with?
A lot of people will tell me at times that I seem to have a high energy level, and I don't see that. I just am who I am, right? But I also believe that it's important to live in the now, but you've also got to look to the future. But I also believe that we should focus on the positive, and we should focus on things that, are on, let's see that silver lining in the cloud, right? Or let's take a look at this terrible situation and let's find one positive or good thing about it, and to be able to look at that. And I kind of approach life that way. Now, it's not always easy. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it can be challenging sometimes. This year 2020 has been a struggle for everyone, and it can be hard to be able to find that silver lining or to find that joy. But it can be done. It just means that you've got to be a little bit more intentional about what it is you're doing. And so I think for me, it's all about getting up every day and trying to be the best person that I can be, and trying to determine how I can bring something better or be better or bring a smile to someone in their day. How can I help them? It's really what it's all about for me. And I think that's just the type of person I am. Understanding how can I help someone? What can I do for their day? You never know what someone's going through. And granted, we all have bad days, but we should really try to brighten the day of the other person that we're with, and work hard from there. Just remember, we never know what that other person's going through on the other end of the phone or on the other end of the video screen that we've gotten to love and know so much today in this world. But I think that's really what it is. I've always been an extrovert. The funny thing is that I remember getting in trouble in school all the time from my teachers. And my teachers would write on my report card, Jeremy has a tendency to socialize a little too much with others. And that was that was continuous on, third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade. Even in the fifth grade, I had a teacher who said that I talked too much, and that she pulled my desk and set it next to hers. And she thought that was going to take care of the problem. Well, little did she know, I just talked with her. That's what I did. And I just talked with her, and she moved me back to be back with everyone else. But, it's those kind of things I look back as an adult and think, oh yeah, that's funny. But at the same time, it's who I am as a person, and that's part of me. And I feel like, that was something that it was supposed to be not appropriate for me at the time, but it's innate. It's who I am, right? And so that's a big part of it.
That's a beautiful story. I love that. I know we always have to worry about time and running, but I want to go back because there's two things in there that were just so cool.
Sure. Yeah.
One is, and if you could just do a couple little short stories around each of them. The first one was, Sometimes it's not always easy. It's a little tough to bring joy through. So is there an example just of recent maybe that you can think of that you were able to pound through?
You're right. So trying to understand how you bring joy through or how you find joy in a maybe an unjoyous moment or an unjoyous time in your life. And I think what you have to do is always be focused on trying to find something positive about the situation, right? And understand what that is. I think if I had a story to be able to share or had, just some kind of example, I think this year, as I said, has been particularly hard for everyone, right? 2020 has been a challenging year. We've had our lives turned upside down, our whole way of working, communicating, our whole way of interacting with people. We can't even touch people anymore, really, right? We need a 6-foot distance with that. It's hard, and especially hard for someone like me. And then you have all this death and things that are around you, and you watch the news, and there's nothing good going on in the news, and you can just really get beaten down by that. And you can kind of get yourself into this area of loneliness, right? Of where you're starting to feel alone. Okay, so now we're shut-ins. We're at home, by ourselves, or we can't have the contact with people that we used to be able to have. Then you start to think about loneliness in general and what that is. And then you start to think about the people who were in your life who aren't in your life anymore. Loved ones that you looked up to. Being able to start to just think about memories and bringing about memories of different things. And I found that just being able to think through some of those memories and thinking about some of the loved ones that I've missed who are gone would get me sad and get me lonely, thinking about they're not here anymore. I can't pick up the phone and call that person. But then I'd begin to think about the memories of the good times and the things that we would have. And I'd start to giggle internally, right? Or I'd think about that. And yep.
I want you to talk about a moment specifically about that giggle.
Yeah. Okay. So a specific moment about that particular giggle that brought that memory to mind was I was sitting on my couch and I was watching TV, and I just had that, and I was watching a movie, and there was a person who was on there. My family's from the South, and I was really close to my grandmothers, both of them growing up, and they're from the South. I spent the summers there. And, and they've passed on, and I was, those are people that I miss. And so I was sitting there, and something happened on the television. I can't remember specifically what it was, but it reminded me of my grandmother, and I thought, oh my gosh, that's something my grandmother would do, right? And that was just that point of where it just made me really think about a good thing, right? A good time of, that we had together, or things that she would do, or people would say different words, and it would just trigger a memory, or even music or something like that would trigger a memory. And so these were just things that were happening during that time period. But specifically, that really made me giggle was just thinking about, that time with my grandmother, and she was always a jokester, and she'd play jokes on people, and just be a character. And so that ignited a little bit of joy in me, and it got me onto that other track, because it's easy for us to fall into that line of negativity and just get on what I call the Nelly negative bandwagon. Yeah. But that helped me be able to focus more on some of the good things and the positive things. And helped me be able to understand how important it was to really focus on the now and the people who are currently, in my life, and reaching out more. So I started to connect more with friends I hadn't talked to for a while, started hosting Zoom meetings from that, calling my parents more regularly, talking with them, my sister, my nieces, all of that, things that I hadn't really done before. And it helped me realize the importance of really connecting with those folks now.
You are a big teddy bear. I can feel it. Do you have kids?
No kids. No grandkids. No.
Sorry, not grandkids. Nieces and nephews?
Nieces and nephews. So I have 2 nieces, yes.
That's a lot.
So, yeah. I mean, unfortunately, they live in Philadelphia, so they're not close by, and I get to see them. But I text them, or we FaceTime, or we do some of those things just to kind of connect. Awesome.
All right, we got to get through this chair, Joyce. We have so much to talk about on the other side. So if you could just relax a minute. There you go. Take a deep breath. You got it. One thing about this is meditation for people is confusing. Like, what does that mean? What am I supposed to do? Sit still. What are you talking about? So in this process, we're hoping to kind of fast track that, if you will, to a specific purpose for a specific result. So that's what I'm going to show you. And when we're done, hopefully you can reverberate that back to me. All right, so taking in one more deep breath. Just relax, forget what it took to get here. There's a lot of confusion, chaos, COVID, what's going on, what's she talking about, why, what am I supposed to say, kind of thing. And then one more deep breath, we're gonna hold it in for 4. I want you to see if you can tap into one specific joyful moment. In the past, I don't know how old you were, maybe where were you? Was it an event? Who were you with? Maybe what were the sights and the sounds? It's okay if nothing comes. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But when you're ready, just open your eyes and describe that in Technicolor as much as you can for us. It's hard to pick one, isn't it?
Oh, it is. It's just hard because, like I said, I'm not like the favorites, like, oh, you're asking to pick one specific thing. So
land on one.
yeah. So just give me a moment here.
Yeah, no worries. Let's do it again. There's plenty of time. There's no hurry.
I think I may have it, but it's probably
perfect.
It's probably a little strange, maybe.
I love strange.
So, so thinking about a very specific moment of joy, and this story may be a little awkward for some, but this is, something that made me happy and made me feel of really big in value and importance. So I mentioned that I was close to my grandmothers, and one of my second grandmother passed away before. I'd go visit her every week in the nursing home and go see her, and always would take care of her and those things. Well, she had Alzheimer's, and so she always would remember me. She wouldn't remember other people, that she always remembered me, and she always liked for me to come in and always help do her hair, or help. She couldn't put her makeup on or anything like that, and to do those kinds of things. So I would do that for her and make her feel good. I'd roll her in front of the window or the mirror in the bathroom of the nursing home, and she'd sit there, and I'm like, Grandma, look at yourself. Do you approve? And she'd go and she'd pat her hair and do this. She said, yep, I look good, don't I? And I'm like, yeah, you look fabulous, grandmother. And she was in her 90s at this point in time. So that's just getting to the story, right? That's not the moment of joy. So
how old were you?
I was probably 38, 39, 40, somewhere around that. It's been a few years ago. And so she had asked me a long time ago, she's like, well, when I die, I need you to do my hair for me. And I need you to, she wore wigs all her life and all that. She's like, I need you to do my hair for me. And I need you to make sure that my makeup and everything looks good. She goes, you need to make sure that I look good before anyone comes and sees me. And I said, okay, yeah, absolutely. I can do that for you. That's something for me. Well, so she passed away, and we were having the funeral in Tennessee, where we're from in the South. And we went to the funeral home before anything like that. And I had went and gotten one of her wigs and taken that to her. And then, of course, the funeral home did all the makeup and all that kind of stuff. But what was amazing is that, so I got there, and it was just me and my sister. My sister went along with me, and because she didn't think I was going to be able to do it, And so I walk into the funeral home, and there's my grandmother, in her casket laying there. And I was talking to the funeral director, and she's this real, a real sweet Southern lady. And her name was Treva. And I said, Treva, well, I've got her hair and all of that and everything. And she says, all right, honey. She goes, here's what I need you to do. She goes, I need you to get up behind your grandma and put your arms underneath her, and I need you to lift her up. And I'll put her hair on in the front, and then you pull it down in the back with your one free hand. And for me, it was very awkward and weird, but I didn't even think anything about it. I just did it, right? Because this is what she asked me to do. It's what she wanted me to do. So I went. My sister's jaw has dropped. It is just like hanging down, and here I go. Get her right up behind her, lift her up, and do this, and put her hair on and all that. We lay her back down, and I fixed her hair for her real quick on that and everything, and made sure everything looked good. And we were finished. And I sit there and I looked at her, and for me, this was the last greatest thing I could do for her. This was what she asked of me, and I did it, and I didn't care about how I felt or anything like that. But it brought me so much joy in the moment to say that this is the last thing that was so important to her that I was able to do for her. And it just made my soul happy. It made my heart happy that I had kept that promise to her and that she would be proud of how she looked. And because that was always very important to her all her life. So that sparks a lot of joy for me. It's a weird story, I know. It's an awkward story, I know. But it was amazing for me to be able to do that.
What was Grandma's name?
Her name was Beth.
Wait, when you respond to me, tell me her name, and then does that moment affect you to this day?
Sure. So my grandmother's name, her name was Beth, and we called her Grandma Beth. And, thinking about that particular moment, it's something that I'm going to treasure all my life. It affects me today just thinking about how I could do that for her because I loved her. And that was my way of, being able to show that respect and appreciation. I mean, we're from the South. We, a part of our Southern culture is all about honoring our dead and doing those things. That's something that's been ingrained in me from the beginning. And, when she asked me to be able to, if I could do that, I remember my mom saying, I don't know that you'll be able to do that. I don't think you can get through that. I'm like, no, if she asked me to do it, I can do it. And I did because it meant a lot to her and therefore it meant a lot to me.
What do you miss about her most?
I think what I missed about my grandmother most was just her smile and how fun she was. And I mean, we had some good times. She started babysitting me when I was like, 8 weeks old. And I used to go and spend the weekend with her every weekend until I was like probably 13 or 14. And so I miss just that time that we always had fun. It was always a good time. And even though that, we didn't have all the technology and things like that back then when I was growing up in the olden days, we still had that ability to create our own fun and to do things together and just spending time. She just made me laugh. And she always was just amazing. It was just a very, very big closeness, I would say, that we had together. Yeah.
All right, we're going to do it one more time. We're going to take a deep breath. Let's go somewhere else. Leave Grandma Beth a moment, as beautiful as that was, and let's tap into another moment that's really joyful. Different place, different time, maybe, different event. Who was there? Sights, smells, sounds. Anything you can tell me whenever you can land on one. We're happy to hear it.
Yeah. So another moment of great joy that I can go back to and think about is that, I'll set the stage of the story a little bit is that, my family is from Tennessee, as I mentioned, and we're from a very rural area of Tennessee. Very simple area, rural area. And that was my roots. That's where we grew up. That's my family. That's where we're all from, mountain people. And, my parents left there in 1968 to come north to be able to start a family of their own and to find work and make better lives for them than what they had. And so, my parents never really had the opportunity or the chance to be able to travel the world or go places or to be able to, sparks a little emotion for me, to be able to go and see and do things, right? They never had that opportunity. They didn't have the finances. They didn't have the money. They didn't have, just that ability or even the know-how at that point. And so just a few years ago, I had the opportunity to take my parents to Europe. And we went in 2018. Now, the bigger part of the story is that's important, but maybe not as important as the feeling behind it, is that my great-grandfather was in World War I and was awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor. And they made a movie about him in 1940 called Sergeant York, starring Gary Cooper and June Lockhart. And so he, in World War I, basically, he captured 132 German soldiers single-handedly, and he, in a sense, as this French town views it, freed their town from German occupation. So there's a monument there in France erected for him. In 2018 was the 100-year anniversary of World War I. They had a huge celebration over in France, and the mayor of that French town, Château-Chichery, invited us over for this big celebration and monument. So it was a big time for us. But the fact of the matter is that was more important to me is that, my parents having the opportunity to go and to do that, never have left, leaving the country before, traveling, never going to Europe. At that point, they were almost 70. And, being able to take them, we went a few days early and I took them to Paris, and we went and saw the Eiffel Tower. We did all of the tourism kind of things, went to Notre Dame before it burnt. We had a chance to go through that. And we also went to Germany and Switzerland and Luxembourg and all of these other places. They had never done that before. They had never had that opportunity. And it was just an amazing opportunity for them, and nice that, I could give them that ability or provide that ability, for them to go and have that, and they could have that experience because they've never had it. It was a whole new world for them in that sense of never being able to have done that. And so never having that opportunity. So that meant a lot to me, just being able to take them. I mean, I know everyone's parents gets on their nerves. That's just how it is, right? But for that opportunity to be able to, take them there to Europe, to see these sites, to participate in this, event for our family that was really important with all of that, was just something that brought me a lot of joy in the sense of being able to do that for them. Yeah, so, with my family being from the South and being in such a rural area, and even with my great-grandfather, with some of his notoriety that he gotten from the war, all through World War I, and then, the movie that was made with all of that. And even today, people have been celebrating the 100th year anniversary of World War I. I think we have such a humbleness of who we are. My great-grandfather was never proud of what that he did. He wasn't proud of having to kill people or anything like that. And, from even the point to where all of these sponsors and companies offered him money to advertise their products, to appear in movies and all of this, hundreds of thousands of dollars back in like 1919, 1920, and he turned it all down. He said, no. He goes, they want to pay me for what I did over there. I'm not proud of it. That's not me. And he wanted to go back to his humble beginnings and just live life as a farmer, which is what he did in Tennessee. He never really talked about that. And so for our family, it's just a humbleness, right? And I think we get that. And that's been taught to us from that standpoint. We know what it's like to come from absolutely nothing, to have families who didn't have education, families who didn't have money. Nothing was ever given. Our people have always worked very hard for what they have. I think that is part of innately the person that I am, and that's part of my roots, but also my parents being such hard workers and trying to identify and wanting to have a better life for themselves as well as for me and my sister. And I know my parents are very proud of where we're at, but that has helped shape all of those experiences, the family, the history, the way that we've looked at things. When I tell people that I used to go to my great-grandmother's house that didn't have indoor plumbing in the early 1980s, they think that I'm crazy. And I say, no, we used to stop at the gas station on the way to her house to use the bathroom so we didn't have to go to the outhouse when we were there. Early 1980s. These are things that people wouldn't think even existed then, but this is where we come from, and I'm proud of that. I'm proud that I come from working people who have worked hard for that, and that's part of who we are. I think we also have a deep faith. I think there's a difference between having faith and a deep faith and then being religious. And I would say that we are people of a deep faith in what is supposed to happen and what does happen and how we look at things. But that has shaped me to be the person that I am today and who I am overall. And that has given me the drive to want to be successful, to want to be better, to want to just do good. I know that sounds really basic, right? Do good, be better, right? But that's the premise of all that we've ever been, all that we've ever taught from our family for who we are from the South is help people, be good, do the right thing, be honest, don't cheat anybody, don't steal from anybody, good old mountain people values. And that's drives a lot of what I do, and I'm very proud of that. And I wouldn't change it. I value that. Those are the things, when I go back to Tennessee, even though I didn't grow up there and live there per se, it's where we're from, it's my roots. There's a certain sense of home that feels like that there.
Grandma Beth and Mom and Dad in Paris. What's the one word that connects the two?
That is a hard question.
One word is hard, isn't it?
Yes.
That's why I asked it.
In one word, so that's hard for me. One word.
It's the most important word, which is one.
The one word that keeps coming to mind, even though I don't think that it applies or think it really makes that sense, but it just keeps coming over and over in my head, is the word selfless.
Selfless?
Selfless.
All right. I'm going to ask you just to describe a container in just 30 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
A container of selflessness. What does that look like?
The container that I saw when describing that was like, one of those garbage bags that keeps continually extending and getting bigger and bigger as things go in it, but it never breaks. That's what I saw.
Right. I'm going to take this big garbage bag of expansion of selflessness on an airplane. We're going to walk off the ramp, and there's 3,000 CEOs, executives, your peers, your coworkers.
Mm-hmm.
And you need to, all that stuff you just said,
Mm-hmm.
I want you to give them that in a few sentences. What is this thing you need to say about expansion?
About expansion?
Sorry, about selflessness.
I think what they need to know for these CEOs and these leaders of the organization, put your people first. Think about what your people need. So this is something that I talk about a lot. Now, you probably saw it light up my face and I got passionate about it all of a sudden here, right? Is like, so when all these workers, and I don't want to say workers, let me go back, all these executives, when they're running organizations, they're focusing on their operational strategy. They're focused on, their sales strategy. They're focused on their finance strategy and all these different things. But the thing they forget about the most, which is the most important, is their people strategy. And that people is their workers, all those, because you know what? All of those other strategies can't get done without people. And if we don't have people there to be able to exercise those, then we can't get it done. So we have to put people first and think about what do those individuals need from us. And it's not always necessarily money or benefits or anything. Sometimes they just need care.
Perfect, but I want you to say it as if I were the CEO and not they or them.
No.
Just say it in a sentence or two. What do CEOs, here's what you need to know about selflessness.
Yeah. Here's what leaders need to know. When you're thinking about the people who you're wanting to influence or you're looking to impact, you've got to understand that you've got to put them first. People are people. A lot of CEOs or executives look at a company and they're thinking about their financial strategies. They're thinking about their operational strategies, their sales and marketing strategies. But what they forget are their people strategy, right? Because we can't do all these other things unless people are behind driving them. So when we think about leaders and what we need to do as far as focusing on selflessness, it's about thinking about what our people need and how we give that to them. It's not necessarily just money or benefits or any of those kind of things. It's care, it's concern, it's empathy, and being able to let people know that you truly do care about them. And if you really want to get down to it, what it's all about is trust. And the way that we build trust and the reasons why we trust people is because we think that person or we know that person has our best interest at heart. And if that's what we want to build with people and that's what we want, that's where our focus has to be.
Beautiful said, beautifully said. In just a couple of sentences, who would you give that container of selflessness to today and why?
If I had to take a container of just selflessness and think about who I would give it to, I would probably give that to Politicians. I think politicians are so caught up in their party's interest and not thinking about people making up the party, about the organization, but they really need to focus on what we need as people. So politicians, I'm handing this out to you to say, focus on your constituents, focus on the people who are hurting, the people who are suffering, the people who can't pay their bills, the people who need support, the people who elected you into office. I feel like that's where we need to start because they're in leadership roles, whether we like it or not. They're the ones who we are seeing front and center in the news media, and they have the loudest voices sometimes, and they need to show that we matter.
I have a chair jar at home.
Okay.
Dave.
So that's where you want me. Is that where? Yeah. So I've got you. So, I think it's interesting, and we talk about trying to find this joy and pull this joy forward. And I think we all should have a chair of joy at home. And I know finding that chair of joy in your house is look around. Where do you want to go to sit there? And it doesn't necessarily have to be the same chair all the time. It's about where you're at and where you want to be. And I think one of the things I tell myself all the time when I start feeling a certain way is, hey, should I be feeling this right now? Is this the right feeling to have? And if it is, okay, what am I going to do about it? Am I going to focus on the negative? Or am I going to focus on the positive and find that joy in the moment of where that joy is?
Perfect. All right, and what did you think about your Chair of Joy experience overall?
It was good. It was good. I liked it. It was hard for me in the sense of trying to find those moments because I don't think about those. I just do things, right? And I don't really think about a lot of the things I do or whatever. I do it because I feel like it's the right thing and I know that it should happen. And so I don't take a lot of time to step back and reflect and be like, oh, well, what moments really made me joyful? It's just like living every day and just doing things makes me joyful. Seeing people that I like, that I love makes me joyful. But it is hard when I have to try to pinpoint that one and say, what really brings you joy when you think about it? And, just like that moment I explained about my parents and taking them to Paris, just me being able to provide that moment and encourage that moment and organize that moment for them. They may never get an opportunity like that in their lifetime again.
Is it possible that based on what just happened here today that you can call and tap into more moments? Because how old are you? If you mind
43.
Is it you have 43 years of memories? Like there's a ton, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure you get overwhelmed and stressed and there's things that go on. Is it possible that you can maybe tap into the skiing event or the football game or the friends at college or I'm curious.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're always in a position to be able to tap that in. It's whether or not you are mindful enough. You have to be intentional, right? And first step is recognizing when you're in the moment when you need to pull in that. And that's where I think a lot of people they're not that good at it, right? And you've got to get good at it, and practice makes perfect. So you just have to remind yourself to, when you start feeling down or you start feeling like you need a little moment of joy, to reach in there and grab that moment and just automatically start associating it. When I'm not, feeling the best or being at my best, that's my trigger to call for that moment of joy or find that place, find that chair of joy where you can pull that joy out.
That was beautiful. Now I'm wondering if you could say it from an I am perspective. When I, and what I will do.
Yeah.
I will sit in my chair of joy, which is where? Do you have one?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, okay. So when I'm feeling a little bit on the downside or feeling like, hey, I just need some encouragement, I find my chair of joy. And my chair of joy is in my sitting room. And it is where I go to think or to ponder or, whatever it is. But I go there for that moment. And I recognize that, hey, I need to have this moment. I need to go to that place. And so I just start to look through those memories and think about some of the good things and find the positive in that moment, whether it's not so good, whether I'm not feeling good about me or whatever I'm going through in life. It's tough, but we have to be intentional.
Perfect. So now as an executive leader yourself and a leader of joy, what do you think that this could do if every executive had a chair of joy in their boardroom or somewhere in the conference room or something like that?
I think every executive should have a chair of joy in their office, their conference room. Heck, let's have a chair of joy in the lobby of our corporate headquarters or wherever it is, right? And let's talk about the importance of what that is. We're talking about a culture. We're talking about not just a task that people do. We're talking about a culture that we live as an organization, or that executives would want to encourage, right? So yeah, absolutely. Every executive should have that chair of joy, and they should encourage other people in their organization to have that chair of joy, where they can go at that moment when they're not feeling so good about themselves or what have you, and they need that pick-me-up, to think about that moment and pull it out.
Wow. So last question, if you could carry the joy movement on to the next person, do you think you could have this kind of conversation with someone else to help them tap into their joy?
You know what's really interesting about this joy movement is I think that it's easy for everyone. It should be easy for everyone to be able to spread the love, right? And to spread the joy, most importantly. And being able to have conversations or talk to people about a chair of joy and about what it is and how you do that is simple. It should be a simple conversation for you and for me and for anyone else. And I think we can take this initiative and pick it up and share this experience is really what it is, and teach others how to be able to find that joy when they feel like maybe their life's not quite so joyous.
Is our world joyous right now?
Is our world joyous right now? That's hard to say. I'm a firm believer that happiness comes from within, and it's up to us to be able to find our own happiness and our joy. That's why I always say about being intentional about that. But we have to recognize it first. That's the first step. I think you can find joy in the world today. Is the world overall joyous? Probably not for everyone, but I think there are ways to be able to find joy in the world today, and it's up to us to find that joy and to help other people find that joy in the world.
Perfect. So Jody and I are writing a book together. It's called Joy is the Answer. And you're going to be invited to kind of take the synopsis of what happened here today and do an entry for the book.
Perfect.
Yep. So my question to you is, and this is a pre-sale for the book, but do you believe joy is the answer?
Joy is the answer. I do believe that joy is the answer. And you might say, oh, really? Really? Joy is the answer? Well, yeah, it's joy, happiness, that feeling of just, being excited about life and about living. That's what we all need. And yes, life is ugly sometimes, and we have to deal with things that aren't, always at our best, and joy can really help us be able to get through those tough times. Joy is the constant that drives the happiness for everything. And we've all experienced joy in our lives one way or the other. We only have to experience joy maybe at least one time to be able to draw from that would keep our engines running. And I think that is what is important.
That's a powerful vision. I see that. It's like
You only have to have it one time.
Talk about that a little, the domino effect.
Yeah.
What's that word about exponential growth?
What I say about having one moment of joy, and that's really all you need, is that you can draw and pull from that. And when you start to see why that moment was so joyful, you start to think, gosh, maybe I should have other joyful moments for all that, right? And there's the laws of attraction. Like attracts like, and that's what it is, right? So if we start putting those kinds of joyous things out there in the universe and start putting that energy out there, it really begins to grow and get bigger and bigger and bigger. And we can have more joyful moments that we can have not only with ourselves, but guess what? Joyful moments that we get to share with everyone else. And guess what? They start seeing that joyful moments. And everyone's envious and they want their joyful moments. And then there are people that they touch, want joyful moments until eventually what? We all are trying to have joyful moments. And what happens when we're all experiencing joy? We're joyful together, right? Sounds cheesy, I know, but it works and it's true.